Again, to reiterate our practice here, for those that have come in new, we have 4 different groups and 4 facilitators. And we'll go through them as we come in here. And if you have any questions of the candidates, direct those questions. There's cards to the facilitators, and they'll ask. We're going to go through the facilitators in order rather than asking the public generally. But it's certainly free to get up and make that movement, or if you need to leave, come in and come out, that's just fine. Again, our 4 facilitating groups are Duluth for Clean Water, Feminist Action Collective, Our Revolution, and Twin Ports DSA. And the next speaker is a gentleman I haven't met yet, Tom Furman, a nice young man running for the 4th District City Council. And Tom, we're going to give a 2-minute introduction. We're going to ask questions, and you've got a 2-minute wrap-up at the end.
Fantastic. Yes, my name is Tom Furman, and I am running for District 4. District 4 encompasses Lincoln Park, all the way up into Piedmont, and Duluth Heights. This goes all the way over to Haynes Road, west as far as about 42nd Street, 42nd Avenue West. And it encompasses a lot of diverse groups of people, and a lot of people that are working very, very hard, oftentimes having 3 jobs between a married couple. Sometimes they're working 100 hours in a week between the 2 of them. This is an important area to really make sure that we have strong representation in our entire city, but especially for my neighbors. So that's why I'm feeling like I need to make sure that we make a difference as a whole community and be strong in our city council. So that's why I'm running. So I hope that you have a chance to get to know me and understand why I'm running, as well as what I stand for and represent, because I think I represent the people very well, but I'd love to hear more about your ideas as inputs as well going forward. So thank you.
Tom, we have a timekeeper who will raise your hand when there are 30 seconds left, and you have 2 minutes to answer the question. We're going to rotate our facilitators this time, starting with Clean Water. JT, and no, we're not starting with Clean Water, we're starting with Shirley.
Sorry, I got that information wrong.
Is it okay if I stand up, or am I too high?
You're good, however you want to be. I'm Charlotte Gardner. I'm representing Twin Ports, Democratic Socialists of America. And my question for you, Tom, is actually from myself. You indicated that you support a basic income for all. Can you elaborate on that? How much annually do you believe is a fair amount? And how would this be funded?
Well, first up, I do very strongly support the idea of moving toward a basic income for all. Now, we're actually seeing some test pilots going on in various places throughout the world, and I'm seeing some really neat things happening. Now, some of them are in Europe, some of them are in Canada, and the amount is going to be different for America versus anywhere else, of course. And I think that it could be a situation where, based on nation, based upon location and everything, there's a lot to be still worked out. But in my mind, the amount that's necessary is so that we have our basic needs covered. Now, of course, if we have universal health coverage, it's going to change our needs. If we have basic things covered, it's going to change where we have to have our basic needs met. Now, this is a whole part of the whole idea of socialism, where we're actually getting our needs, our rights as human beings covered. Where it'll come from is, as you may well know, in America, we have more income than any other nation, despite the fact that we have so many people under the poverty level. This is the problem that we're looking at. Now, going back to the idea of socialism with this kind of a situation, you can stockpile money, and that's one of the big problems, money being the medium. You can't stockpile goods as well or as easily, and you really can't stockpile services. I mean, the idea of, well, if I'm really rich, I'm going to go to the doctor every day. No, this isn't something you stockpile. So we need to make sure that we go ahead and get our basic needs covered. What that number is, I can't say for sure, but if we restructure how we end up paying for things by increasing the tax burden on the rich, I mean, not the people that are making $200,000 or anything. These people are still doing fine. But we're talking about elite. We're talking about people that, for lack of my own verbiage here, I'll say the 1/10 of 1%. This is who we really need to make sure that we are sharing the tax burden the way they should, because they are making their money off the backs of us. And this is who we need to represent the people.
Thank you. JT, Louis?
JT Haynes, Duluth for Clean Water. Hi, Tom. So the conversation around copper sulfide mining is often framed as jobs versus the environment. We're wondering if you think it's wise to pit those two things against one another. And a related question, do you think human health should be part of the conversation?
Human health should always be part of the conversation because we're talking about something that impacts everyone. And when I think of Duluth in regards to PolyMet, I think of Duluth as being downstream. We've already seen what happens when we have upstream problems that ends up coming all the way down the St. Louis River. We've spent millions of dollars fixing the St. Louis estuary. And now we're looking at it and saying, we're going to turn a blind eye to PolyMet? No, we can't do that. Now, do I feel that there is a pitting against the idea of labor versus environment? There is, unfortunately, but this shouldn't be the case. Because when I look at the big picture of how PolyMet is structured, we know that PolyMet is going to end up selling off to Glencore. We know that there's going to be PLAs that may not transfer to Glencore. We know that there are so many questions that are out there. That's part of the reason why I really push for the idea of having some kind of a hearing. Now, if I'm a Duluth City Councilor, I'm going to be able to start saying, yes, we need to have an evidentiary hearing. But right now, we need to start getting things we need to nitpick and figure out just what is being the reality versus what is being said. Because I hear a lot of, I believe this. Well, I do believe we need to have a hearing so that we get rid of all those speculations and find out what is going to happen with PLAs, what is going to happen with the labor, what is going to happen. Are these actually good paying jobs? So my belief is that we can't go forward until we get those answers. And even more importantly, we can't turn a blind eye to the idea of if there is going to be an environmental problem, can we handle that? Because I don't believe we should be paying a pound of cure because by removing the idea of just an ounce of prevention.
Thank you, Tom. Jen Mackey and Ashley Northerly from Feminist Action.
Hi, I'm Ashley from the Feminist Action Collective. Sorry about that. Can you talk about how important diversity is to you and what specific measures you'd recommend to support diversity in our community?
Sure. As I mentioned, the 4th District is very diverse. We have an awful lot of people that come from backgrounds from all over. And representing, making sure that we have a voice at the table, making sure that we know what's actually happening out there, that understands what people are going through is very important. Now, I've worked with a variety of families, a variety of different individuals who oftentimes are misrepresented or unrepresented, not in the racial diversity, myself, because I've been lobbying for people that have medical issues, problems with the environment, problems with making sure that they can actually take care of their kids. Now, they have completely different backgrounds than what a lot of other people end up coming from. I think the same thing goes with making sure that we have that racial diversity and a mix of understanding gender diversity. Everybody needs to have a voice at the table. Everybody needs to be able to be heard. Now, as a city councilor, I can mentor, I can do a variety of things to make sure that we get some solid representation going on. But I don't like the idea of saying, well, we're going to do identity politics and say, we need to have this based on our mix of population. We want good representatives, people who are going to say, I'll sit down and listen to each person individually because I know that my neighbors are wanting a strong voice at the table. They don't care whether that's a woman or a man. They don't care whether it's a black or a white. They want somebody who's going to sit down and listen to them and be able to say and speak up for those people.
Thank you. Mike Mayo at Our Revolution.
All right, Mike Mayo, Our Revolution. So you stated in your questionnaire that you would support a local $15 minimum wage and universal or single-payer health care. Now this question has 2 parts to it, kind of. Who did you support during the 2016 presidential primary and why? And how do you apply their ideas to local politics?
All right. Yes, and you were correct in summarizing my beliefs. I supported Bernie Sanders from the very beginning. Once he announced, I was thrilled because I had watched his political side from quite a while back. when he actually opposed the idea of the Patriot Act. And I thought, he's opposing the Patriot Act. What is this guy? A real American? So I started following him because I was thrilled that there was a guy that's willing to stand up against something called the Patriot Act just by seeing through what was really happening and being able to say, this isn't right for the American people. They want to have their privacy. They want to have the abilities to be able to have a say at the table. So I supported Bernie Sanders very strongly. In the very front end, I actually was a delegate for him going forward from Duluth into SD7, CD8, and the state. I fought very hard for Bernie Sanders because I knew that he would be pushing for the idea of a $15 minimum wage. He'd be pushing for the idea of making sure that we had universal health care for all. He'd be pushing for the idea that we would have free college tuition. I mean, we're in America. We have the money to be able to do all these things. Now I realize at a city council level, I'm not going to have a lot of these voices to be able to make those happen, but I can at least pass on our dream, our desire, our belief that we should have a fair return on our tax money.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Greg. Charlotte Gardner, DSA. This question is from Laura Birnbaum, Twin Ports DSA, and also a community member. Can you speak to inclusivity and your efforts to address concerns raised by the disability community, which is the largest minority group and intersects across race, ethnicity, age, gender identity, class, and sexual orientation?
Thanks, Charlotte. Yeah, I can certainly address a lot of those issues because, oddly enough, I don't know if most of you aren't familiar enough with what I did in the past and what I've worked on. I was a member of Class 30 for Partners in Policymaking, which works with representatives and legislators throughout the state, trying to make inclusivity as a big part of it, making sure that we have the rights as people with disabilities going forward, and making sure that they are considered a citizen with one vote, one voice. This goes beyond, of course, just the idea of sticking up for one ethnic group, but unfortunately, the thing is a lot of times people that do have disabilities are oftentimes minorities, more oftentimes than even whites. Now, this is a big problem. I myself, my children have health needs, I mentioned that before, to the point where we can't do public schools because of their health risks to breathing the air of where those foods are actually located. My daughter oftentimes has to leave public events because there's food that's at the event that is actually causing a problem on her. She'll get hives and start throwing up all over her face and start running down her body. And we have to get out of there before we have to use an EpiPen. Unfortunately, we've been too late a couple times. We had to hit the EpiPen and everything going forward. But we need to make sure that we have that understanding. Diversity is all around us, and we need to include these voices at the table, whether it's making a law, whether it's trying to figure out how to get an ordinance passed, or whether it's actually just trying to get a ramp installed. Because I know right now that's one of the biggest issues that's going on in Duluth right now. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the fact that we don't have accessibility throughout the city. We have people that are actually building and rehabbing places that are public access without ramps. And this should be a blatantly obvious one. And yet, I work a lot of times with people that have invisible disabilities, the ones that you can't see right out in the open. You'll look at my kids and you'll say, well, they're normal. They are normal kids, but they also happen to have disabilities.
Thank you, JT or Louis.
Tom, you've stated very clearly that you oppose PolyMet, a project which is currently in the permitting stage with the state and federal agencies. And by the way, as you know, with Duluth for Clean Water, we talk about whether or if PolyMet, not when PolyMet. How, as a candidate, a citizen, and if elected a councilor, do you plan to oppose PolyMet? And what actions do you suggest like-minded citizens take?
Thanks, JT. I am very strongly against PolyMet right now. Right now, our technology isn't up to the point where we can actually say for certain that we can do all these things without having any environmental impacts. And we've actually witnessed a number of those kind of situations. Now, as Duluth citizens, we can actually make sure that our voices are heard at the bare minimum, not just in Duluth, but throughout the entire Iron Range. And I think that we need to start getting more people involved in understanding that what happens upstream of Duluth impacts Duluth. We are not in a bubble here. They aren't in a bubble there. We all work together. The money that's being earned, or could be earned, if it can be earned very highly, which I haven't seen yet, and I want to see the evidentiary hearings, can actually be starting to talk about, can be spoken about, can be actually addressed, can be seen where we need to get people out there and saying, this is what the reality is. It's not just when you end up having a sulfide mine that you need to just go ahead and drain it at the end and presto, we're going to have a lake. It's a different kind of a mining system. It's one where we need to actually have the pumps filtering and doing all sorts of crazy things for 500 years, is what I've heard at times. This is nuts. We haven't had a successful one going on very long, and yet we're saying, yeah, let's go ahead and put it upstream of ours. We need to get our people involved in saying, hey, you care about this lake that's right outside of our door. I mean, this is 10% of our world's freshwater supply sitting right outside our doorstep. 10% of our world's freshwater supply is sitting right there. And for us to make that determination that, no, we don't want to get involved, well, let's go ahead and see. No, we need to be involved. This is huge. This doesn't just impact us. It impacts so much more. It doesn't impact just our generation. It affects my children and their children and their children's children. This is something we cannot stand by and sit idle. We need to actually get people involved. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to people around you. And let's make things happen so that we can be safe and secure in the future.
Thank you, Jen or Ashley.
How can the city address the issue of affordable childcare options and access?
Right now, Duluth, oftentimes, just like so many places around the U.S., has very expensive childcare, and our options are very limited. The first thing that I think we need to make sure we do is pass a strong, earned, safe, and sick time. This is the very bare first minimum thing that we need to do. If once we pass earned, sick, and safe time, we can actually have that luxury to know whether we should or shouldn't send our kids or send our kids to school, send our kids to daycare, or if we can actually afford to stay home to make sure that they get that child care at the time that they need to be able to earn their own health back. Because this is times that we need to make sure we take care of one another. That's the first step. The other side of it is making sure that we can afford that child care. There have been tax credits and a number of other things that happen, but the thing is people are living hand to mouth. My neighbors, I know, are struggling. As I mentioned before, they're working 2-3 jobs as a household. We can't do that. This is putting so much stress on ourselves. This is putting so much stress on my neighbors, on my friends, that we can't sustain this for long. We're one accident away. We're one car wreck away from going from just floating to sunk. I'm just one car wreck away, and it scares the heck out of me. And I know there are so many of you out there as well, beyond just my neighbors, that can say, I am so close, don't let me drown. So we need to make sure we afford, have places where we can take kids that are going to be good, safe places, whether it's figuring out a way to finance it through the city so that rather than having to pay it up front in the very beginning, or whether we can pay over time, or some way to make sure that they're taken care of through their employers. I think that we can actually figure out a way. We're smart people. We can figure out something. I don't have all the answers, but I'll tell you, you guys, between us all, we can all figure out the answers to that.
Thanks, Tom. Mike Mayo, our Revolution.
All right, Tom. What do you see as the 1 to 3 most pressing issues facing Duluth today?
Well, I learned a while back there's important things and there are urgent things. We have a number of important things on the table and we have a number of urgent things on the table. Some of them cross over both, but important things are things such as making sure we have a strong economic system in place where everybody can actually have a job, where they can work 40 hours and be able to maintain their own life and be able to pay for their kids with just one income of 40 hours a week. And whether it means that getting a $15 an hour wage is going to be enough, which I honestly don't think that's going to be enough unless we also comes with universal health care or something else. Those are the important things. Now, I'm a big push on the idea of $15 an hour, and that's one I would definitely include in the top 3. But there are other things that I would also include because they're urgent. Earn sick and save time. That's an urgent thing. Another important one would be probably the homeless bill of rights. Making sure that everybody, again, has a voice at the table. I hate the fact that I feel that we actually need to have a homeless bill of rights. These people should have the same rights we do. But right now, they don't. They don't get that. They don't get the free pass that we all do. They are forced to end up having to fight for the same rights that we all share. This is a group that I would say, again, that's an urgent one that I would put in the top 3. Now, again, depending on how you categorize it, I would also include the idea of making sure that we have a universal health care system in place. Now, whether we end up as a community backing the idea of John Marty's universal health care for Minnesota, I think that we need to have something set up to where we don't feel that stress and that strain, that burden that we are just one accident away from financial ruin. That's where I think that we can actually do something as city councilors. We can force the issue going forward, saying, hey, our representatives, hey, senators, this is what Duluth feels. This is what we are backing. The city council already did this when they backed Standing Rock. We can do this backing our own state's rights, our own state's desires to have a universal health care system in place.
Thank you, Charlotte. Last question.
Actually, Greg, we're doing well on time, so we're going to try to squeeze in just 2 quick 1-minute questions.
2 1-minute questions?
1 or 2.
Okay.
So our question to Duluth for Clean Water is, would you like to speak to the concept of financial assurances? If you want to just a little brief idea what that means, feel free to.
I love that.
So that's the insurance piece that's part of the permit to mine process. It wasn't discussed in the environmental impact statement process. That's where the company fronts money in case there's a disaster.
Oh, right. Got it. Yeah, the financial assurance, it's kind of like an insurance policy in case something dire happens. And right now, as the way that I understand it, is PolyMet can have this, but once it's sold to Glencore, it may need to be renegotiated. Now, if that's the case, renegotiating this is just a fiasco in itself, because if they're trying to sell it, they're going to sell it. Now, what reassurances do we have as being citizens downstream of the PolyMet project that we're going to have safety going all the way upstream, making sure that things are going to happen right? Now, we've already seen that the Native Americans are screaming that their land is dying, the rice is dying off. Yet, this is within limits of the EPA. This is within the legal situation. And this is a huge problem for me, because I'm saying, what is the legal limit on what you can kill? I mean, if you're killing them, you're killing them. Period, the end. You're doing damage. You're doing harm. Now, beyond that point, we say, well, we've got insurance, so we can go ahead and do whatever. If the tailings pond breaks, and we're just 200 miles downstream, Duluth, we'll go ahead and clean it up.
Okay.
I don't like.
Second 1-minute question.
Can I? Oh,
Okay,
1 minute.
finish up.
Oh, all right. We can't clean this up. This is 10% of the world's water supply, again, right outside our door. There is no amount of money that you can insure with that's going to guarantee that my neighbors are not going to be drinking poison just like Flint, Michigan. There is no amount of money you can actually say that I'll go ahead and insure this for so that I'm going to be happy when things go south. Because I can't drink money. Water is available to drink.
Okay, quick, last 1-minute question.
When
All
we're
right.
done.
Mike Mayo, our Revolution. How would you define the term inclusive, and how will you strive to be inclusive throughout all steps of the process as a city council?
Inclusion means making sure we get a lot of voices at the table from every step of life, every walk of life, every system that's in place, making sure that they have a strong representative sitting at the table, making sure that if they need to be sitting at the table, they are sitting at the table, helping to make decisions. I mentioned before that I don't necessarily have all the answers, but I think as a community, we have great answers, and we can figure out how to do things together. Making sure that we continue that and get representation from all areas is very important. Now, that's part of the reason why I think that I suit the bill perfectly for the 4th District, because I can sit down and hear where people are really hurting, what's going on in my neighborhood, what's going on right down the road, what's happening, all the way down to the point where we can talk economics, we can talk human rights, we can talk about where things need to change and what we need to have. So that's what diversity really means in making sure that everyone gets a voice at the table and a representation in the decision-making process.
Tom, 30-second wrap-up.
30 seconds since I ate so much time before.
Darn politician.
Doggone it. All right. I am Tom Furman, and I am running for the City Council of District 4. I'm running because I know that I have a strong understanding of finances. I have a strong understanding because I have a Master's in Business Administration, and I've worked with a number of different entrepreneurs on starting, stabilizing, and expanding the economy. But it's beyond that. It's making sure that we understand the people that work right here, people that work in our community, people that work in my district. These are the people that I understand and I want to represent because it's a service in my mind. It's a service to make sure that I can actually do good for everyone, not just a small minority of people that may be at the very top. Maybe it's a pigeonholed group of business. No, I'm here to represent people of my district. And I can do that stronger the more communications that we all have, and I think that I serve that purpose. I want to communicate with everyone, so please feel free to sit down and talk with me anytime. I'm very open, and I want to hear your ideas and voices. Thank you.